So we are getting numbers for early voting and early mail-in voting all across the country, and it's indicating that the Democrats or registered Democrats are actually returning ballots at a much higher rate, percentage, amount than registered Republicans. And I wanted to give some thoughts and some scenarios on what I think this actually could mean. So I have actually three different things. I have three possibilities, one warning, and one disclaimer about this whole situation. So before we get into that, if you want social, political, and cultural commentary, topical videos throughout the week, every week, make sure to subscribe to this channel, whether you're on Rumble or on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, also ring the notification bell so you get notified when I post. So with that said, let's get into the topic today. So one, I said registered Democrats, it could mean registered Democrats turning out early on, really in high numbers, could mean that they are fired up to get their vote in. It appears that's what's really happening. However, it doesn't necessarily mean they are fired up to vote for Joe Biden or the Democrats. And it doesn't necessarily mean either that they're fired up to vote against Trump, because I know that's kind of a more popular stance right now, is voting against Trump rather than maybe for Biden, and I'll talk about that in a few seconds. But it also could be a sign that Democrats are fired up to vote against the far left, taking advantage of Joe Biden, it appears, and saying no to an Obama associate, because it is clear that the enthusiasm for Trump is astronomical. If you watch any news, if you're observant at all of what's going on, you can, of course, use the excuse of coronavirus and that maybe Joe Biden's being more responsible in his campaigning versus Trump. That's a valid argument, I think, but that could also be just a cover for the fact that Joe Biden doesn't have as much enthusiasm or as enthusiastic of supporters than Trump. And it could also mean that people who are registered Democrats are actually excited to vote for Trump, an indication that maybe they're voting against Biden or against the far left or against an Obama administration that they thought maybe failed them. That could be another thing. And it also could mean that Democrats are kind of like just want to get it over with and are reluctantly voting for Biden just because they don't like Trump, and they just are staunch, hardcore Democrats, vote blue no matter who type people. So that could be another situation. But what I have found out through comment sections, through videos, through news organizations actually reporting truthful things, through a lot of data I've seen, which you can verify on your own or search for it, and through actually personal interactions with people in real life, I have noticed that a lot of people are actually coming out or are not as vocal about their support for Biden if they're a registered Democrat, and not necessarily coming out in support of Trump either, is because they actually are ashamed, and I've heard that word be used, they are ashamed to be Democrats now because of how the political spectrum has shifted to the point where moderate Democrats, or at least left-leaning but not like far left Bernie Sanders, socialist AOC types, they are being called right-wingers or right-wing whatevers now, because the people maybe haven't changed their views, meaning they're still kind of in the same spot, but the branch or the umbrella of right-wing has moved so far left because the actual left people that we call left now are so extreme, and they've kind of pushed out all the dissenting voices that are a little more moderate. So now you see people who have never been called right-wing or never even consider themselves a Republican or conservative are now being put in the kind of, for lack of a better term, basket of deplorables that Hillary Clinton kind of referred to Trump supporters as in 2016. And so that doesn't make people feel included, especially a group of people who are proud of being inclusive and diverse. For them, the far left now, the current left, to be pushing those people out, it just doesn't make sense. So the tent for Republicans appears to be growing, while the tent for the Democrats, or at least the ones who are outwardly like staunchly Democrat, seems to be shrinking. So that could be an indication too that people maybe aren't so removed from the Democratic Party that they feel like they need to deregister as Democrat. I know that is common too, or they don't feel like they need to switch all the way to Republican. But that could be also another scenario. And then my second kind of general topic, that was all topic number one. I know there was like 5 different variations in there, is that the strong early showing doesn't necessarily mean it's going to last, meaning it could be that the core diehard base of Democrats are the most enthusiastic of any group, whether it's Trump or not, and it could potentially fade quickly, meaning the biggest burst of voters, early voters, could be the ones we're seeing up to this point, and then it'll quickly fade away, giving way to my third possibility, which is that Republicans will pull through, since they typically pull older. I mean, that's the stereotype of a Republican, even though I am a registered Republican, have been since I've been able to vote. I wouldn't say I'm like lockstep Republican, but I like the way the party is going now, with a kind of insurgent candidate in Trump who is not a politician, who does not act like a politician. Not saying I want that level of Trumpisms, Trump character to be the new norm as far as where the party's going, but I think he was important in pushing the narrative towards what we want it to be, which is real people who are not looking to be politicians for the rest of their life, running for public office and running on a more populist, not necessarily traditional conservative, but more of a socially liberal, fiscally conservative-ish, even though the last 6 months have blown that up. But anyways, that more of that type of Republican, because to me, Republican, it just means you support a republic. You're a Republican. So, anyways, I got on a sidetrack there. By third, like I said, they will pull through, typically pull older, because, like I said, the stereotype is that they're old, white Republicans, but so those people will turn out if that is a true stereotype. However, the younger people that are joining the Republican Party are being shown to be diverse, and all the things that kind of the traditional Democrat liberal left touted as their core values are now being seen across the board, really, and are actually kind of moving more towards the right. So I think also the vote in person, vote as close to election day as possible, but in person, will help President Trump, in my opinion, because he has done a very good job using his platform, using his manipulation of the media, of social media, of his kind of mastery of branding and marketing to place a spotlight on voter fraud via mail-in ballots or mail-in voting, and also via poll watching and all the different narratives and postal service and everything he has really concocted, to his credit, whether you agree with it or not, the perfect storm for people to find the means they feel is the most safe to vote and the most, or the least likely to be an inaccurate count or for your vote to be fraudulently denied or whatnot. So that is going to, I think, play in his favor. Whether the whole voter fraud narrative is true, I think getting people to vote in person on election day is a huge advantage for him, considering what we're seeing right now. So, and I think this early indication may also say that the Republicans might have a more consistent early voting pattern, or maybe even a consistent increase, whereas the Democrats may have an early pop and then kind of fade off. So it could all even out at the end. I don't know. So those are my 3 kind of general scenarios. But I want to give a warning, actually, because I've been seeing a lot of pundits who are touting this early voter turnout as a win for Biden and an early indication that he could take the election pretty easily. I want to warn those people or anybody, because I think anyone thinking all Democrats are voting in lockstep for a Democratic nominee is making a huge mistake, considering what we've been through the past 4+ years. And here's what we've been through, right? I'll just remind you. Is that polling was completely almost across the board. I think only a few polls were actually right or close in predicting the 2016 results. And the election of Trump in 2016, just in general, as a political outsider, like I've outlined earlier in this video, where Americans basically gave a giant middle finger to the establishment, to career politicians, and especially fought back against an Obama administration that a lot of people feel failed them, even though they voted for him. In many cases. Also, in that same vein or line of thought, is this could have been a vote against the currently this could be Democrats are fired up to vote against Biden because they don't feel that another Obama associate or someone close to him at the time of his administration, obviously is number two or is number one, is the way they want to go, or they don't necessarily want to go back to an administration that was all hope and change but didn't actually produce any change that was positive or improving the lives of Americans. So that could be another part. Also, let's remember Kamala Harris is not a likable candidate. I know she's come up the ranks in the state of California and now a state senator, but if her presidential campaign and her performance on debates or her performance on the VP debate or on the VP trail and her appearances on certain news outlets and her support from Wall Street and from Hollywood, all these things are making her not likable, and I've actually been seeing people say she might even be more unlikable than Hillary Clinton, which to a lot of people is the reason maybe why Hillary Clinton lost, of course coupled with the fact that she was going against a non-career politician, an insurgent kind of Republican candidate, but not really a traditional Republican. So that is another thing that could be playing in the favor, it could be supporting the fact that Democrats are turning out, but maybe not necessarily supporting Joe Biden. And also Kamala's far left record in the Senate, coupled with a record in the state of California that is against current trends of law and order, it's not really, I don't think, helping people who are traditional Democrats or people who are Republicans that want to vote for someone other than Trump. It could be recipe for disaster for their ticket. And then coupled with the results of a Trump administration for 4 years, which up until February, really, of this year, things were at record levels, and even now that we're close to Election Day, things are coming back up way quicker than people thought possible, really. So that's also working against them. And also, we're coming off of confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett, who is Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court. Now, the vote, I think, is supposed to happen this week to move her confirmation out of the Senate Judiciary Committee and into a vote for the entire Senate to officially confirm her. She's been attacked for being a mother, or for choices as a mother, her choices as a wife and in her family with her husband. She's been attacked for being a person of a certain faith. And her record as a judge has been attacked, even though she is the judge we need and want, no matter what side you're on. We want law and order. We want someone who follows the Constitution and the laws as written. And she was unshakable in those hearings. So all these things are really working against the Democratic ticket of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and could indicate that the early turnout for registered Democrats might actually be a farce and kind of leading people away from the truth of what will happen, which we won't find out until, I guess, 2 weeks from today, really, actually. Wow. 2 weeks from today is Election Day. I'm filming this on Tuesday. Hopefully I'm getting this out today. But lastly, I want to give a disclaimer. And a lot of the data about the ballot returns and early voting that I've been seeing talked about on news or media, I should say, is not including those not registered with a party, and that is a huge portion of the voting block. So it's more than what the percentage of the voting block that's not registered with the Democratic or Republican Party, or not affiliated with any party, is the third largest voting block from what I understand, and it's also a percentage of the registered voters that is larger than the difference in swing as far as like the difference in winner versus loser as far as popular vote. So that's not being taken into account here. So if most of those or a majority of those not party affiliated voters swing one way or the other, that could completely just throw out all this data we're seeing of registered Democrats voting in mass early, assuming that they're all voting for the Democratic nominee. So I just wanted to give kind of a lay of the land, what it could mean, kind of give as many scenarios as I thought were potentially possible on both sides of the equation. Like I said, I'm open in saying I'm voting for President Trump, and I am a Republican, a registered Republican, although I do lean socially liberal, but I'm fiscally conservative. I think Republican Party makes sense for me. Like I said earlier, I'm not a lockstep Republican. I'm willing to call out people when they're being stupid and dumb, whether I agree with most of their stuff or not, which I have a few videos I'm kind of working on regarding that right now, that kind of encompass everything I talk about on this channel, which is social, political, and cultural. And a few of the videos and topics I want to cover soon, hopefully tomorrow or the next day, kind of encompass all that right now. And I think the world is kind of, everything's one big thing now. That's why I love talking about this kind of stuff. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Did I miss any potential scenarios? Do you think I'm crazy for some things I'm talking about here? Let me know in the comment section. If you're on Rumble and you're on the mobile version, you can hit the punching bag above this video, and if you're on the desktop version, make sure to hit the plus sign below, which is similar to a like in a Rumble. If you're on YouTube, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if on either Rumble or YouTube you are not subscribed and have not turned on post notifications, please do that right now. I'd greatly appreciate it if you want videos throughout the week regarding social, political, and cultural topics. And with that said, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.